Welcome to the show. I'm Lee Hart. On today's show, we're going to take you out to Bull Parker, legendary bit maker and spur maker. I've known Bull Parker for over 30 years, and him and I together have sat down and we have figured out the bits that work for me and don't work for me. And on today's show, he's going to walk you through and talk to you about the bits that personally work the best for me. He will also show us what goes into making these handmade works of art. Thanks for joining the show today. Sit back.
Fort Wallace was the fightingest fort in the West. Fossils, Indians, soldiers, scouts, wagons, trails, pioneers, stories. Discover the story of Fort Wallace and the people who served here, the people who fought here, the people who settled here. Wallace County, where the past is present.
Welcome back. Today we're going out to Bull Parker's place and we're going to learn how he got started making bits.
I was an iron worker for about 35 years. In my younger days, I did a lot of traveling and I worked on a lot of TV towers like Channel 27 in Topeka, and I like doing that kind of work and I like traveling around like that. About that time, I really liked to do a lot of shooting. I did a lot of trap shooting. I went to a lot of big shoots. Went back to Vandalia, Ohio several times. In October of '73, I had my left leg broken about 5 places. Didn't work for a year and had always piddled with guns some, so I decided that while I couldn't work, I should go to gunsmith school in Denver, Colorado. So I did that for a couple years and was offered a teaching job there, but I didn't want to be obligated to have to go to school every day and not have any time off. So, you know, it's always been easy for me to make things and to do things with my hands, and I always liked handmade bits, like to buy and sell and trade handmade bits. So I was around, you know, bit makers, and I knew them really well, and so when I decided that I wanted to do this full time, why, I had so many good friends that, like Jerry Cates and Don Rogers and Pat Vaughn and Tom Palmer. You know, it was easy for me to go get lessons from any of them and try and become a better builder. And then also, what's a little bit different from my part than a lot of them's part is, I was always around a lot more professional cowboys, and I always had to make stuff that worked. And, you know, if it didn't work, why, they would tell you about it, and a lot of times they could tell you what they wanted to do, whereas some bit and spur makers, they go to a lot of trade shows and they trade amongst themselves and they sell to the general public and stuff like that. Why, I never have been to a bit and spur show as a vendor. I've been there as a tourist, but never as a vendor to try and sell something. We like to make everybody's bit or spur or buckle or whatever we're making the best we can make it. Oh, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, my wife felt sorry for me at Christmas time and said, "What can I do to help you?" And I said, "Oh, let me show you how to saw these big pieces of silver here." So since then, you know, Sandy has learned how to saw silver, and all my bit and spur buddies tells me that Sandy's world class. She's the best. And Sandy saws a lot of sophisticated stuff. Lee Hart's a good friend of ours, and we've made a lot of stuff for him. And today we're going to show you how to make a couple of ring snaffles that he likes.
When we come back, Bo will explain the history behind the bits that I use in my training program.
Howdy folks, it's time to saddle up for a brand new television series called Cowboy Up, a celebration of the American cowboy. Our show will feature the very finest in Western musicians and cowboy poets for your enjoyment. We'll explore Western music, meet these performers up close and personal, and enjoy their performance of music and rhyme. This is Cowboy Poet Laureate Ron Wilson inviting you to join me as we cowboy up. Happy trails.
We're back, and we're going out to Bull Parker's to have him explain the history of the bits that I use in my training program.
This is what I call a everyday working snaffle. This is one of Lee's favorite snaffles. I've made him several. He likes this the best. One of the reasons why he likes it and other people like it is because it is so loose and it floats and travels so easy, the mouthpiece. And you'll see it's nice and wide, got copper on the inside. And you see that these collars are fairly big, and it gives all that looseness. Another snaffle that we make, that Lee has also, a snaffle like this, you can see how it's smaller in the center, and you can also see how the mouthpiece is trapped. It's more for a finished horse in the arena than a everyday snaffle. When Lee gets a horse out of a ring snaffle, a lot of times he will ride this bit right here. My good friend John Israel in Winona, Oklahoma taught me how to make this bit. A lot of companies have tried to duplicate this bit. They haven't been very successful in doing that. You'll notice that the mouthpiece is set on a 45-degree angle. You'll also notice that the ring here in the center is offset to the back, and it's not in the center here. And what that does is that pushes that mouthpiece further forward in the horse's mouth. This little bit is lightweight. Everybody knows who John Israel is and what a great bit maker he was. And this bit just fits a lot of horses. A lot of young horses really like this bit. It's called a John Israel pipe bit. This bit here is also one of Lee's favorite bits. If you want to know the history of a bit like this, you will have heard it called all kinds of names. You would have heard Tramble call it a three-piece. You would have heard early Texans call it a dog bone. But in reality, an English veterinarian who came to the United States in the early 1800s by the name of Dr. Bristol worked on horses' teeth a lot. He was the one that invented this mouthpiece. But because us as cowboys didn't like him, because he was a stuffy Englishman, we didn't give him any credit. But if you read Mom's Bit Bible, you will learn all that. This is how I think this mouthpiece works. Let's say that I'm going to pick my horse's shoulder up, and the tongue is laying here, and I'm going to pick this shoulder up over here. As I pull up on this shank, and this travels in this ring, you can see how it gets higher. And regardless of how the horse's mouth is shaped, this bit is going to lay in there very comfortable. A lot of people like this little bit. I call it a 3-piece. Another bit that Lee rides a lot on finished horses is a bit that looks like this here. This is what you call a 315 clapper shank. And we've put all kinds of different mouthpieces in it. We spooned some out and heated them and done all kinds of different things. One of the things that a lot of people like about this bit is, you know, when you let go, this bit lets go. When I first started making bits, I would ask people, what's balance? What's balance? Is it supposed to set straight up and down on the anvil when you put it on the anvil? But to me, balance in a bit is when you can hold it on 2 fingers like that and let go and it falls back. If a bit doesn't hang like that in a horse's mouth, to me, it doesn't work very good. And you can say, well, the headstall holds it straight, the chin strap's on there and all like that. But of the professional people that have brought me bits to copy and they want it to work just like the one that they brought, that's how I learned this trick. Almost all of the bits that they brought me and they wanted copied, they hung like that in a horse's mouth. So to me, that's balance in a bit. The bits that we've talked about and shown you are the bits that Lee uses in his training, in various stages of training. Today in the shop, we're going to show you how to build this little work ring snaffle right here. This is one of my favorite bits that I make. The name I give this bit is a derby bit. I had a roan head horse that was running through the bridle with the chain bit, and I made this bit here. It really worked good on that horse. I sent this bit to Donnie McNeese, who breaks in cattle for Jeff Smith and Ike Cox. And I said, ride this bit on a lot of horses, see how you get along with it. They did. He said, Bull, that's really a good bit. Fits a lot of horses. Then I give this bit to my good friend, Brent Wright, who I make bits for. And I said, see how this bit will work on a reining horse. I call him up a couple months later. I said, Brent, how you get along with that bit? And he said, good. He said, you don't need it right this minute, do you? And I said, no. He said, good, because I'm down here in Texas and I just won a big futurity riding that bit. And when Brent got home, he gave me the buckle that he won the futurity with. I'm really proud of that buckle that Brent Wright gave it to me, and also that he got along so good with my bit. Well, the first thing we want to do in making this ring snaffle is roll us some rings. And we're going to go outside. I like to roll my rings outside, weather permitting. And we'll roll those rings. While those rings are cooling off, then we're going to show you how to make some of these other parts. So let's go outside and I'll show you how to roll some rings. First thing we're going to do is get this mandrel clamped up here. The trick in rolling these rings is let the heat do the work. If you don't heat it evenly and the same, you know, then it's not as round. Anybody can do it. No secret to it. Just heat it up, roll it around there, and you may have to do a little blacksmithing on it here and there to get it like you want it. While those are cooling off, we'll go in the shop and we'll start on a mouthpiece. I've got these pieces cut off. I've already tapered one so that you can see what it looks like. I like to make these in pairs. I like each one to be the same as the other one. This is my homemade lathe here that I've made, and I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to start putting this taper on here. Now that baby's hot, but because I'm used to handling hot things, I think I can make it to the water can. We'll cool him off so he's a little easier to hang on to. Now that we've got our two pieces made, we're gonna take some eyes that we've rolled in the same manner that we did our big ones. We're gonna get a couple like we want here. We're gonna tack these eyes on this piece right here and grind it and get it smooth. After we get one eye welded on there and smooth, then we're going to take our other eye, and you can see how that's bent. We're going to bend that a little bit more, and then we're going to slip it up inside this one. It's going to stick out here like this, and then we're going to weld our other eye on. And then after we get both of our eyes welded on there, then we look something like that there, and we're going to grind that out. After I've got that ground out and smooth, I have hacksaw marks here on the table on what size, what width I want to make the mouthpiece. This ring snaffle we're making is going to be 5.5. So I'm going to put, I have a center mark right here in the center. I'm going to lay that right there in the center. And then I'm going to mark that. I use a hacksaw for two reasons. One, it's more accurate, and I can saw right where I want to saw. I'm going to saw right on the outside of that mark. The second reason why I'm doing this is because I think it keeps your hand-to-eye coordination working. It also gives you physical exercise, which may sound stupid, but when you get to be 77, You ain't a young stud no more, and you got to be thinking about all these things.
I hope you're enjoying Cowboy Logic. When we come back, we'll go out and we'll watch Bull Parker finish making our O-ring snaffle.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Lee Hart. We're going to head back out to Bull Parker's and we're going to watch him finish making one of the bits that I use in my training program.
Now we're going to go back over to the table and we're going to check our length. Okay, now if you'll see that line right there, you'll see that I'm just a little ways past that. If you see that line right there, you'll see that I'm just a little ways past that. So now we're ready to weld on our collars. Now, we made these rings and these collars just like we made the big rings by rolling them. Now we've got our rings welded on there, and we're going to put this inside our big rings. The rings that we rolled outside, we've taken and cut them and spread them apart, rounded them up a little bit. So now we're going to put this inside here. Now I can tell by looking at this that when I bent this and spread it apart, I bent this here. So this is the one that I'm going to bend back. Now then, you see that I have a little bit of a gap there. And I have a little bit of a gap there. And this gap is bigger than this gap. So I'm going to close that up a little bit. So now you see that most of my gaps are pretty close to being the same. So now we're ready to weld this right here. I'm going to show you how I do that. We're going to weld this up right here. Now, we'll do the same thing to the other ring, weld it up and grind it out, and I will get another snaffle here and show you what we're going to look like. Now that we have our rings welded on there, we're back to the first one I showed you, and I wanted to show you what that looked like. And you'll notice that that has copper on the inside. So that's normally the last thing we do is put copper in there. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about a ring snaffle or a snaffle is the left-hand side of the snaffle is in the horizontal position. We learned that from our Mexican charros. They probably learned that from some bit maker. And you can start looking at ring snaffles. You can look at store-bought ring snaffles. You can look at handmade ring snaffles, and you might see them different ways. But my answer on why that makes a difference And why that should be like that is because if this was a three-piece, both pieces would be in the horizontal position so that your dog bone in the middle would lay so that each shank could work independently. So with that being said, I have this laying in the horizontal position on the left-hand side of the horse. And I just take and kind of eyeball it. I just take and put these marks on here like that. And you'll see that I marked it about like the one that we got done. I like for my copper to be over here and not out in the center. Number one, it's a larger diameter here than it is out there, so we don't take away from the strength. So we would saw a slot in there, and then we would pound copper in there, and then after we had that copper pounded in there, we'll take and solder it and clean it up. Now what I do different than most people is, after I had that copper pounded in there, I take and solder it with hard solder. And most people don't. That's why you see some bits that have the copper out. It's because they just pounded it in there, and finally the steel lost its grip on the copper and it come out. So these are some of the things we do here at Bull Parker's Bit and Spur Shop.
I hope you enjoyed our trip to Bull Parker's. I'm Lee Hart with Cowboy Logic. If you have any questions or ideas for the show, please contact us through my website, leeharttraining.com, or private message me on Facebook. Thanks a lot. Let's go out and grab our horses and try some Cowboy Logic.